Hello, Nova Nation. Happy homecoming weekend. I am WXVU Sports Director David Szczepanski, and it is time for your Villanova football keys to the game. As your 13th and 14th ranked in both of the major FCS polls, Wildcats get ready to take on the New Hampshire Wildcats tomorrow afternoon for homecoming weekend. Kickoff at Villanova Stadium at 3:30 p.m. Our pregame coverage here on WXVU will begin at 3 p.m. So if you miss any of the action, you can't make it to Villanova Stadium, we'll have plenty of coverage for you here, both on air for WXVU as well as on my social media. So a lot of coverage throughout the next 24 hours or so for the homecoming game and homecoming weekend. I'm really excited. Great energy. You can already feel it on campus as you're walking around. A lot of the alumni coming back. And it's just going to be such a fun event tomorrow, and hopefully Villanova can bring home a victory. And speaking of a victory, let's talk about my three keys to the game for Villanova to pull out a win against New Hampshire tomorrow. My first key to the game, and I feel like I've been stressing this all season long. I mean, you hear about it all over Villanova football, and the Wildcats, they really just need, and I want to stress this a lot, they need a balanced offense, both in the passing attack and the rushing attack. And we know how good this Villanova rushing attack is when you look at David Avid and Isaiah Ragland, who will hopefully play tomorrow after missing 2 straight games with an ankle injury. But then you also know how good Jabril Mace can be and Isaiah Wright, and it's so many different dimensions of this explosive rushing attack allows it to be explosive and have a lot of success against teams. And unfortunately, Villanova's passing attack just has not lived up to the expectations that we had for it in the beginning of the season. And, maybe some of it is that, the passing attack was just so good last year, right? Connor Watkins was so good, and he had so many good weapons, Rajon Pringle, Jaron Hayek, and then, of course, Jalen Sanchez, who now is really the top wide receiver for Villanova, was more of the third wide receiver for the Wildcats last year. But regardless, this passing attack just has not looked very good this season. And Connor Watkins, he had 2 interceptions the other day against Maine in Villanova's 35-7 loss against the Black Bears. And then he also had a fumble in that game as well. And Watkins, he's yet to have over 1,000 passing yards here in 2024. And he's only thrown for more than 200 passing yards just once this season. That came against Colgate, the Raiders, early on in the season in a non-conference battle. And in a lot of these games, Watkins is around 110, 120 passing yards. He's been much more of a game manager, which I think for Villanova, you're not too upset about, especially because prior to the game against Maine, he was really limiting the turnovers. He didn't have an interception in all of 2024 prior to last week. But, I mean, Villanova, if they want to get to where they want to go, which is deep into the FCS playoffs to, hopefully climb up the CAA rankings heading into this game against New Hampshire, they are tied for 4th in the conference. They need a better version of Connor Watkins. And more importantly, they need a better version of this passing attack. And that's why I think a balance is really necessary in this game against the Wildcats, the New Hampshire Wildcats. They have a really good defense. I think a balanced passing and rushing attack really helped Villanova get some momentum too, right? This game could be crucial for how the stretch run goes for Villanova with some big games coming up against Monmouth and Delaware at the end of the year. And if Villanova can get on the right note in this passing attack, in this passing game, get Connor Watkins, get the receiver some confidence, I think that can go a long way. My second key to the game for Villanova is to have good punt returns. I mean, the Wildcats, this is going back to prior to the bye week a couple weeks ago. When you really look at the game against Stony Brook, Villanova really struggled in the punt return department. I mean, you cannot afford to fumble the football on punt returns. You saw it last week against Maine. It really kind of took away all momentum that Villanova had in that game and allowed Maine to extend their lead. So for the Wildcats, just have clean punt returns. Don't fumble the football. And it may seem pretty simple, but Villanova has really struggled with it over the past few weeks. And I would really like to see them clean up that area heading into this game against New Hampshire, but also heading into the rest of the season in the second half. And my third key to the game for the Wildcats is to put pressure on Seth Morgan, the starting quarterback, VMI transfer quarterback for the New Hampshire Wildcats. And Morgan, he will throw interceptions. I talked about this in my preview video a little bit earlier about how Morgan had 11 interceptions a few years ago in 2021. He has 5 interceptions so far this year. He's a pretty good passing quarterback. He'll pick up yards. He'll do so pretty efficiently. But this New Hampshire team, if there's one area where they struggle, it is their offense. Now, more so their rushing attack. But I think Villanova, I know their defense will be ready to kind of limit a rushing attack, which has already struggled so far in 2024. New Hampshire's only averaged about 77 rushing yards per game. So put pressure on Seth Morgan. force him into some difficult situations in the pocket and see if you can pick up some interceptions. I think putting pressure on Morgan will be a big key of how Villanova's defense especially can step up in this game and lead the Wildcats to victory. So those are my 3 keys of the game. To recap, a balanced passing and rushing attack, so balanced offense, cleaner punt returns, right? We don't want to fumble on those situations, want to keep the momentum on Villanova's side for these offensive drives, and it starts with the punt returns. And then my 3rd key of the game for Villanova is to really put pressure on Seth Morgan, put pressure on this offensive line of New Hampshire. Those are my 3 keys to the game. Stay tuned for much more coverage. Happy homecoming weekend, Nova Nation. Enjoy it. Have fun. We'll see you tomorrow at Villanova Stadium. And as always, go Cats!